What is up, night crawlers? Welcome back to the Nightmare's Edge. Thank you so much for watching. Today I have some terrifying stories of hauntings. Please understand that these experiences can be traumatic. So thank you authors for sharing. I truly appreciate it, and for allowing me to read them. As always, if you have any information that can help them, please contact them or reach out to me. The links to their stories will be listed in the description. I'll also place my email there. And so without any further ado, sit back, relax, and let me tickle those inner fears. Something is following and targeting me by Pani Anaya. About 20 years ago, I lived in an apartment. I would hear knocking on the ceiling quite often. I asked the woman across the hall about it, and she replied, "Oh, that's just a spirit. It stopped once you moved in." A bit after the knocking started, odd things would happen around the apartment. Things would be moved, windows closed, lights turned off. Things you would say that I just forgot that I had done. Well, one night, I looked out my bedroom and saw the light from my computer on in the other room. I went in and the screensaver was off. When I went back to my room, I laid down on the bed facing the other room to see if it happened again. It wasn't long before I felt something touch my backside. It was a forceful touch. From that time on, I would wake up with 4 scratches on each shoulder at least once a week. I switched bedrooms. The scratches stopped, but every time I was going to see my boyfriend, my keys would come up missing. I would find them in the oddest places, even though I knew I wouldn't put them in the bathtub, the kitchen cupboards, or my dresser. I brushed it off like I'd just misplaced them myself. My boyfriend stayed over one night, and in the morning, he had asked me what I'd done to him the previous evening. He showed me his neck. He had 4 scratches on one side and 1 on the other. It was as if someone grabbed his neck with one hand and scratched him. That was the last time he came over, and I soon found out that he was not a good person. I moved out of the apartment into a home with 2 friends. I took a bungalow bedroom. I could hear someone running in the attic every night. It stopped once I put a cross over the door. Other odd things happened. One night, we were going to my aunt's home to get my cousin's Ouija board. I distinctively saw someone in our basement when I was the last one to leave. My roommates would also hear someone walking around my bedroom when I wasn't home. A year later, I moved into my current home. My cousin moved in with me for a little bit. She would always say that she could hear someone walking in my bedroom when nobody was home. Nothing much different from the happenings from my apartment happened, until I met my husband. That's when the traditional haunting thing started. Doors closing, things falling, lights flickering, brand new light fixtures breaking. One night, when my husband was away and I was working the night shift, I came home to find my back door wide open and the police pulling up. Someone had used a crowbar to remove a window to rob my home. My neighbor saw them taking things from my home and called the police. Had he not called, I would have walked in on them. Almost exactly 1 year later, someone broke into my home again and brutally murdered my husband. Again, I would have been home, but someone stopped me from going home right then. There's been some small things that have occurred between the 2 events and many more since. A car was speeding down the road and driving erratically. It would have hit my home, but it hit a tree and changed its course. 2 dogs were hit by a speeding car in front of my home. The dog that I currently have was hit by a car. Someone attempted to steal my daughter's car, but the alarm went off well after they were in the car. I had a beautiful Doberman that died of cancer when she was only 2 years old. Those are just some of the out-of-the-ordinary events that have happened in the past 5 years. 1 or 2 of these events would be normal, but all of them at the same home in a 5-year span? I am convinced that whatever was in my apartment followed me. However, I do not think that it is malevolent. I think that it was protecting me like it did with my boyfriend. What I am convinced of is that there is something very evil in my home. I say this because I would hear a very odd sound from outside. My dog would hear it. One night, my camera sent a notification that it captured the sound. It sent chills up my spine, and I told my children not to let any of the dogs out. I did investigate the area the next day, and I could not find any signs of animals. I can't attach the video with the sounds, but I was told by a medium that it sounds like a demon. I also have a sleep app that records while I sleep. Many times it says that I am snoring, but it actually sounds like a death rattle. On one occasion, I had woken in the middle of the night and heard it myself. One of the recordings actually had some other sound at the very end that is overlapping the rattle. Another recording had me talking in my sleep, saying that something is heavy. Then, you can hear what sounds like footsteps walking away. Recently, my son moved out of the home. I have put my dog's food, water, crate, and toys in the room. The past 2 days, my dog refuses to go in there. She used to go in there if he was in there, but now it's to the point that I literally have to take her food out of the room or she will not eat. I unfortunately can't attach video and audio clips for evaluation, but I will if I'm able to at a later date. I am open to any advice. Moving isn't an option. I may be stupid, but I feel as if my husband is in the home, and if I move, I will be leaving him. What follows is actual video footage from Panianaya. Please listen carefully.
This is fucking heavy.
Possessed Haunted Mirror in House by sammiebud. I used to live in a house with my parents, which both myself and my parents had very strange experiences. However, my parents didn't let me know that they had them, as they didn't want to spook me further. My room was particularly bad with the activities that used to happen all the time. Just to name a few experiences, there was someone knocking on my door saying my name when everyone was asleep. My guitar plectrum was thrown at me from across the room, and my guitar was often strung, all 6 strings, all at the same time. Obviously, if a string goes out of tune, sometimes one will strum, but all 6 was definitely no accident. Anyway, I had this antique mirror for as long as I could remember. It was a past relative's, and I always used to notice handprints and fingerprints on it, even though I never touched it that much. They were everywhere from top to bottom. My parents, obviously not wanting to let me know they were also aware of the paranormal things going on, said to me not to worry about it, and it was probably me touching it by mistake, etc. As they seemed so sure this was the case, I forced myself not to think about it and carry on as if nothing weird was happening, which was very hard, as something was definitely going on. Eventually, my mom told me she was also concerned about my mirror and needed to speak to me about something she'd seen other than handprints. She never showed me the photo she took because she didn't want to scare me, but she said in the prints on the mirror was the perfect face of a devil. She showed my dad and his friends before taking a photo, and despite them not wanting to believe in this side of things, they both could see it too. Obviously, I didn't know how to react and thought perhaps something was after me. I mean, who knows? Mom decided to get advice, so she had gone to a shop near me called Spellbound. They sold things of all types, but mainly they were all to do with the supernatural type of things, healing crystals, etc. As you can imagine, the people who worked there all were very aware of the spiritual world and different types of paranormal experiences, so my mom felt this was the best place to get advice. She spoke to a guy there about my mirror, who said we had a few options, which were smashing the mirror completely to get rid of any negative energy, moving the mirror away from reflecting onto me or my bed, sage the room, or for me to wear a black tourmaline, either in the necklace or bracelet form to help protect me. I wasn't worried if we needed to smash the mirror, as I was pretty terrified by this point. However, my parents didn't want to do this, as it used to belong to one of my relatives who wasn't with us anymore. So my mom bought me the black tourmaline, and we went on from there. I still noticed the fingerprints, handprints, but not so much strange experiences, which I felt perhaps the tourmaline worked. My mom did go back to Spellbound and spoke to the same guy again regarding that she thinks the tourmaline worked, but there's still handprints, where he said again it might just be worth smashing the mirror. He began to explain how mirrors could be portals for demons or another life, and by keeping the mirror, we could potentially be letting them directly into my room. It is extremely dangerous. My parents still did not want to smash the mirror. Typical. So I ended up taking it with me when I moved out a few months later, with every intention to smash it on my own time without them knowing. Well, when I first moved in, I did use it now and then to get changed, etc. while I was looking for a new mirror. I was skint, but I would hang a towel over it when I wasn't using it. Anyway, one day my boyfriend put it up a bit higher in the bathroom to shave or something, I don't know. And he made sure it was secure so I had no way of falling. I'd put it in the same position before, and I can literally 99.99999% tell you it could not fall. But as you can probably tell, it did. He left it for literally a few seconds to grab a towel, and with that time, there was a huge bang and then a smash. The mirror literally shattered into tiny pieces, like even if I wanted to repair it, which I definitely didn't, there would have been no possible way. To this day, I believe that some sort of guardian angel or fate broke that mirror because as soon as I moved in with the mirror, the flat felt uneasy, and as soon as we disposed of it, I felt so much better living there. Whether whatever was attached to the mirror followed me to the flat when I took it, I don't know, but nevertheless, I'm so glad that I'm not dealing with that anymore. Please don't ask me why I didn't smash it sooner. It's hard when you're 18 living with family to try and get your way, as I'm sure you are all aware. Sorry for the long post. Spirits have followed me to work. By Just a Random Guy, 1803. I have shared experiences from my past on here, with various encounters with the paranormal. I feel like spirits are drawn to me as they follow me to wherever I move. I have been living in my current house for 2 years now, the typical amount of time it takes for the phenomena to resume after a move. I will begin by recounting an experience at my first house though. I typically awake at 5 for work, and I'm always the first person to rise during the day. This was a Thursday, and like always, I was the first person up. My bedroom is located on the second story, while the living areas and bathroom are on the first. I got dressed before heading downstairs as always. I make my way to the first story without turning on any lights, lest I wake up others. The house was quiet, and I made my way to the staircase. At the base of the stairs is a bookshelf. It is full of books, but not overly full. This is important. We also do not live in an area that ever sees seismic activity. Also important. I was 3/4 of the way down the stairs when something dark moved in front of me, and several books tumbled from the bookshelf. Right next to the bookshelf is a window, and there's enough ambient light that comes through from the street light that I can see pretty well. I froze and pulled out my cell phone to turn on the flashlight. There was nothing there. The shape I had seen was far too large to have been a mouse, and too high up for that matter. If I had to qualify the size, I would say that it was as large as a 10 or 11-year-old child. There were 3 books that had fallen. Each one of them were children's books too. Now to work. I am always the first to arrive. Starting around 2 weeks ago, I began to notice a bad smell that would randomly come and go from my office. At first, I thought a mouse had died in the wall or ceiling, but as I said, the smell would come and go, sometimes for days. There were spots in the company that I would go where I felt a chill run down my spine, giving me that feeling that I was being watched. I would also hear random noises that I could not explain away, as I was alone. That same Thursday, however, I heard a distinct voice. It was faint and belonged to a man. I thought that one of the other guys had arrived and was outside talking on his cell. My office is located pretty close to the main entrance, so this was a logical assumption. I got up from my desk to walk out the front door, a trip that takes at the most 10 seconds. No one was there, and my car was the only vehicle in the lot. This morning, I heard a woman's voice and smelled a floral scent which was replaced by the strong smell of death that I had been smelling randomly. I knew I was not alone, so I decided to try and communicate. I asked aloud what this thing wanted of me, but got no response, except that smell vanished again. My only concern, as I have dealt with spirits since I was 14, was that because of the extremely foul smell, that something malicious had located me. I will keep you all posted in further developments. These are the strongest interactions I have ever had. My family joked that I'm haunted, but now I think they're being serious. By Twisted Harley, 1106. Ever since I was a kid, I used to freak out my family with knowing things that there was no way I should know, and interacting with things that weren't there. I don't even remember most of it, just from what they've all told me throughout the years. When I was about 14, I started noticing weird things happening in the house, such as the usual floorboards creaking, the banisters on the stairs starting to shake, and doors closing on their own. Then more things, personal to me, started happening, like I was being singled out from the family. My room was permanently freezing, even with the doors and windows shut and the radiator on full blast. Mold started to grow in just one spot on my wall and would come back whenever we got rid of it. Called the landlord who got someone out, but they said there was no issue after inspecting the wall behind the wallpaper and the floorboards. Then there was constantly the smell of cigarette smoke in my room, and any drink I had would smell like week old wine after a couple of hours, but only in my room. One night, I could hear someone crying in my room. I walked in thinking it was my sister, but it wasn't, so I called her into my room and she could hear it too. Our house was the corner house on the street, and my mom was on the far side of the house, so it wasn't connected to any other houses or rooms apart from my mom's room, but she was downstairs. So there is no way it was a neighbor crying through the wall. A couple of nights after that, I had sleep paralysis and woke up to the weight of something pinning down my ankles. All I could see was this dark shadow at the end of my bed. I was so scared, but eventually drifted back off after just watching this thing for what felt like hours. The next morning, I had bruises on my ankles in the shape of fingers. We eventually moved, and the house I have now was newly renovated, but was built on the side of an old Victorian workhouse. The old front building still stands and was turned into flats. In this house, much doesn't happen apart from sometimes things moving on their own, unless it's in my bedroom. All my family have claimed to have seen the same black figure in my room, just a huge black shadow in the shape of a large man. Every night my bed dips as if someone has sat on the end, and there's always the feeling of someone watching me. I was also meditating one night, and when I opened my eyes, I was swarmed with a black smoke-like mass all around me, which vanished into thin air after a couple of seconds. We call the figure Benny as a joke. After doing some research into my house, we found that someone was murdered in the man-made river at the end of my road, which was built during Victorian times. And the guy who did it was called Benjamin, which really freaked my sister out because our nickname was so close to this alleged murderer. My mom said either we just attracted paranormal activity, or I'm being followed by something. We don't know what to make of it. I come from a pagan family with my mom being a white witch, and me also beginning to learn. So we often cleanse the house with sage and other methods, but nothing seems to work, which is why my family think it could be attracted to me in some way. A Haunting in a Hotel by Purple Hyena 01. For about 2 years, I worked in a hotel in the mountains. For privacy reasons, I will not be saying where or the name of the hotel. It was a relatively young hotel, but the land it was on was old. dating back to the early 1900s. It had about 14 floors, including 2 levels of parking garages and a sort of attic area that made up the top 2 floors. This area was used for storage and where the brunt of the activity took place. Things happened sporadically. The occasional shadow figure walking in the halls, motion lights turning on by themselves. The one on the 12th floor, I used to sit and watch it turn on by itself. And it took a lot to get these things to register. The popular story with the employees was it was the spirit of a child. I had to disagree with them. For one thing, the sensations I would get from that floor was not human, much less a child. Not demonic though. More like an elemental would be the best way to describe it. That, and 2 personal experiences left little doubt as to what was up there. My mom and I had a sort of a game, where we would take pictures of the creepy spots we worked and send them to each other. I went up to the 11th, 12th floor and started snapping away. As I took a shot of the 12th floor from the stairs, I went up to get another angle. I suddenly got the feeling that I should not be doing that. I decided not to take the pic and started back down the stairs when a little voice in the back of my head told me to be careful. Later that day, I was moving one of the big, giant linen carts through a doorway, something I had done thousands of times by that point, when my little finger got caught between the linen cart and a door frame. I had to wear a splint for a few weeks. When I told my mom, she advised I apologize to whatever was up there, which I did, and warned the new people not to take pictures up there, but they would just laugh at me. The second experience was about a month later, on the 10th floor. I was looking for one of my supervisors and saw him at the end of the hall, and watched them go into a room. I went down to the room and found no one there. I went back to the storage room, and there he was, saying he had been on the 2nd floor the whole time. So this thing could mimic. There were other things while I worked around that area, but those are for another time. I've since left that hotel and still wonder what the nature of it was. I do know this, however. It doesn't like its picture taken. My Village is Haunted by author Chan21. I come from a small fishing village in Alaska. Our residents never surpassed 400 people living in the village at a time. Back in the 30s, the village was relocated due to constant flooding. In our new village, we have homes, a school, 2 tribal offices, a boys and girls club, a post office, a church, and a graveyard. The graveyard sits atop a big hill down by the beach, away from the rest of the village. Recently, we had to expand the graveyard because we were running out of plots. This is relevant to what I'm going to say. My village is haunted. Not just 1 or 2 houses or the school, the whole village. The spirits wander and have been seen walking up and down the roads, going into buildings or homes. Per every small town, everyone has a story. Some hear babies crying in the woods, hear their dead relatives calling to them, or see dead relatives walk past them and disappear just as they catch up to them. Like everyone else in my village, I've had a couple encounters that will stay with me, and I've told them here on Reddit. What I can't understand, however, is why they're wandering the earth. I have a couple theories and I thought I would post here for some feedback. Theory 1. After being forced to adopt Russian Orthodox Christianity during the Russian colonization, I don't think my ancestors are pleased about the whole being buried for all eternity bit. Maybe we are not supposed to be buried. Theory 2. They have unresolved issues or don't know they're dead. They seem to be going on about their day, not attempting to reach out or see us. Theory 3. My grandma tells me of her mom's uncle, who was a shaman. She said he tried to curse a man, but my grandmother's brother got in the way. My grandma's brother drowned at 12 years old. The shaman was so upset, he cursed the man's entire village to always be thirsty. My grandma said her friend from that village always chews on ice, which makes her question that curse to this day. I wonder if that curse ended up cursing my whole village for decades to come. I talk about the curses because recently, we've had 2 to 4 deaths a year for a few years now. Please let me know your thoughts about why they can't move on and rest. Is My House Haunted? By Litchi Aries. Hello everyone. I'm a 16-year-old girl situated in India with my parents and my sister. We live on a street which is quiet, and we don't get sounds except for occasions like someone's wedding and things like that. I live in a building where everyone moved out, leaving only my family and another guy's family. For a few months, we were experiencing paranormal stuff, but they were unnoticeable. But for the last few days, it's been getting out of hand, and it's noticeable, even after I did everything that was on my mind, like use sage. I will list a few of my experiences here, but before that, I'll explain how my house is. The main door and the living room are attached together, and it has a small washroom for guests. We don't use that washroom except cleaning it once a week. And 2 rooms. The very first experience happened in the living room. Me, my sister, and my mother were chilling, sitting on the couch when my sister pointed at something. I didn't care at first, but when I saw something in front of the living room washroom, the door was open. It was a shadow of a whole person, walking, and then it disappeared. We instantly checked the washroom and no one was inside. And there wasn't something that would cause a shadow of a moving person. Then we saw stuff like sculptures moving, doors automatically opening. Then, this experience happened in the living room once again. The washroom door was open and I looked at it, and I caught a glimpse of a white face, fully white. Black spots on the place where eyes are supposed to be, and then it vanished. This morning, I placed my pair of earphones on the middle of the stool and I sat down on the bed. After a few minutes, I heard a noise and naturally I looked up to see my earphones floating in midair for half a second, and then it fell on the ground. The same incident happened to me when I was doing chores one day in the kitchen, but with a spatula. I've had more experiences about this. My biggest question is my house haunted? Any recommendations on what I should do? Thank you all again for being here. I truly appreciate it. Again, if you have any information that might be of use to the authors, please contact them or myself. Again, links in the description. But until next time, remember, just because you couldn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't watching you.